What would you do if you uncovered a secret worth millions hidden by the very people you trusted most? A secret buried with your grandfather's legacy, just waiting for someone to unearth it. Before we dive into this mind-blowing journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button below. Don't miss out on more incredible stories like this one. Trust me, you'll want to be part of what's coming next. The bank manager's face turned pale the moment I handed him the passbook. His hands trembled, and he rushed to lock the doors and call the police. This wasn't just a regular old passbook. It was a relic from my grandfather's past, one that everyone thought was nothing more than old junk. My mother had even thrown it away the day before, declaring it worthless. But that wasn't true. Some things, no matter how buried, refuse to stay hidden. And they have sharp edges. I'm Danica Gross, 31, and until that day, my biggest problem was a broken radiator in my apartment. I work as a paralegal in Columbus, Ohio. Not glamorous, modest pay, a car that groans like a dying whale. But I'm good at my job because I notice the little details, and I never stop asking questions. My family always considered this a flaw, but that day, my ability to dig deeper would change everything. The funeral was cold and efficient, exactly how my mother, Miriam, would have wanted it. No sentimentality, just the essentials. My brother, Wyatt, barely showed up on time, and when he did, he was glued to his phone, probably checking his investments. This was typical of him, only caring when it benefited him. I stood back, observing the scene, and thought about Grandpa Eugene. He wasn't the kind of man to let things go. He was patient, methodical, and sharp, a man of numbers, an accountant for 40 years. He had taught me how to play chess, showing me that it wasn't just about the pieces you captured, but about positioning, strategy, and patience. 2 weeks before he passed, I visited him. His body was weak, but his mind was still sharp. He grabbed my hand with surprising strength and whispered, "The passbook, the chess book. Only you, Danica. Promise me." I promised, though I didn't fully understand why at the time. After the funeral, I went to Grandpa's study, a small room with bookshelves lined with old, familiar books. Among them, I found his favorite chess book, Strategic Endgame. But something was off. The book felt too heavy. I opened it and found that the pages had been hollowed out. Inside was an old leather passbook. It looked ancient, but something felt strange. The account number was modern, unlike anything from the era it seemed to belong to. This discovery sent chills down my spine. I took it to the living room to show my family, but that was my mistake. Miriam's reaction was immediate. She snatched it from my hands, barely looked at it, and threw it straight into the trash. "This is garbage," she said, dismissing it as worthless old accounts. But I saw something in her eyes, a look I'd seen before in my job, the look of someone hiding something. That night, I couldn't sleep. Why had my mother reacted so aggressively if the passbook was nothing? Why not just dismiss it casually? The next morning, I made my mind up. I was going back to the farmhouse. I arrived just as the first light of dawn touched the fields. The house was silent, as if holding its breath. I dug through the trash, and there it was, the passbook hidden beneath the funeral debris. I wiped it clean and looked at it again. There was a note tucked inside, written in my grandfather's careful handwriting. Account number 774-12289. They don't know about this one. Ask for the full history. Trust no one in the family. Only you, Danica. My heart raced. Miriam and Wyatt didn't know. This was something Grandpa had kept hidden from them. I took photos of everything, uploaded them to cloud storage. Digital backups are forever. No one was going to erase this. I drove home with the passbook in my bag, questions swirling in my mind. At 10 a.m., my mother called me, acting sweet and concerned, but I knew better. She asked if I had taken anything from the farmhouse, and when I lied, she seemed to relax. But then she added, "Don't go digging through his things anymore, Danica. Some things are better left alone." Later, Wyatt called. He seemed too casual, almost rehearsed. He mentioned the property and how they were already dividing things up. Miriam would get the money, Wyatt would handle the property, I would get nothing. They thought I would accept it without question, but I wasn't going to let that happen. The next day, I drove to the bank with the passbook, my ID, and my grandfather's death certificate. I expected nothing, maybe a few $100s, or maybe just answers. The young teller seemed curious but polite. After entering the account number, she excused herself to speak with someone in the back. 20 minutes passed. I began to feel foolish. Maybe my mother was right, and this was all a waste of time. But then a man in an expensive suit entered the room. He introduced himself as Theodore Calloway, the regional manager. He examined the passbook like it might explode. "This account is flagged in our system," he said, and then proceeded to explain that the account wasn't from 1962 as the old passbook suggested. It was opened in 2010, and the balance? $2,147,832. I nearly choked. My grandfather, the man who lived simply, who everyone thought had nothing, had hidden away over $2 million. But the story didn't end there. In 2015, someone tried to access this account using forged power of attorney documents. Miriam, my mother, had tried to steal the money, but the bank's system had caught it. Calloway continued, pulling up records that told a devastating story. Miriam had stolen approximately $1.5 million from Grandpa over 5 years. When he realized what was happening, he hid the remainder, transferred it to this account, and kept it hidden. This was his lifeboat, his last move in the chess game against Miriam. And now I had the proof. The investigation moved quickly. The police arrived at the bank within hours, and Detective Tabitha Jefferson, who had worked in financial crimes for 15 years, told me something that stuck with me. The victims are trapped. They love the people who are stealing from them, and when they try to speak up, no one believes them. But Grandpa fought back. He had built the case with patience, and I was the one who would finish it. A few days later, Lawrence Whitmore, Grandpa's lawyer, called me with more information. Grandpa had prepared for this moment. He had left evidence, documentation, and a notarized statement explaining everything. How Miriam had stolen from him for years, isolating him, convincing others he was losing his mind. But he wasn't confused. He had been sharp all along, and he had trusted me to finish what he started. The investigation revealed even more. Wyatt, my brother, wasn't innocent either. He had laundered over $600,000 through a shell company he had set up. Wyatt, who called me to tell me to let it go, was just as guilty as Miriam. I played my part, documenting everything, keeping quiet, pretending everything was normal. Then the day came. The arrests were made. Miriam, in her bathrobe, was arrested with no fanfare, just the quiet end to her long-running lie. Wyatt, in his office, was cuffed in front of his colleagues, his reputation shattered in an instant. The court hearings were long and drawn out. Miriam tried every trick in the book, claiming Grandpa was mentally incompetent, but 3 doctors testified that he wasn't. Wyatt's lawyer tried to strike a deal, but I wasn't interested. Grandpa taught me chess. You don't negotiate with pawns. Miriam was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison, and Wyatt to 3. I sat in that courtroom not feeling triumph, but a quiet sense of completion. Grandpa's fight was over. The truth had finally come to light. But there was one final surprise. Lawrence Whitmore called me again. Grandpa had left me one last letter. He had trusted me because I was different from the rest of them. I had always asked the tough questions, and now, with everything resolved, he had left me his final message. It wasn't about the money, it was about justice. 6 months later, I opened a bookshop named Gross Pages in honor of Grandpa's love for puns. The shop was a tribute to Grandpa, with a chess table in the back and a photograph of Grandpa hanging above it. The truth, in the end, had a place to live. As for my mother, she writes letters from prison, full of excuses, but I've stopped responding. Some doors, once closed, stay closed. And that's how a simple passbook unraveled a web of deceit that had been hidden for years. Grandpa's final move in the game of life wasn't just about money, it was about uncovering the truth. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life. Think someone else needs to hear this story? Share it with them. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more unbelievable stories and investigations. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Also, click on the bell icon so you're the first to know when the next chapter drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.